Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fire Force Chapter 284. When we last left our heroes, we got to the end of the assault fight. Tamaki and Assault's pro-lechery standpoint led to the entire crowd turning from being overly Puritan to like stripping down and dancing in the streets. It was really weird, and I'm not quite sure it really worked on much of any level, but it happened, and it's over now. There were some arguments made, and I'm not quite sure any of them really made much logical sense, but sure, let's go with it. But then that fight wraps up, and we move on to some much more fun content, checking in on Joker, as he fights his own doppelganger and Burns. And he's kind of struggling against both of them until Burns reveals that he's actually not Burns' doppelganger, but when Burns and his doppelganger kind of fused at the end of the OP's rescue arc, Burns' consciousness took control. And he killed Joker's doppelganger, and Joker and Burns then had this kind of conversation. We learn there are two doppelgangers left. One of them is obviously Benimaru, and one of them we just don't know yet. There was some discussion in the comments on my last video about whether it's Shinra or not. Not going to really comment on that. But yeah, we then kind of cut to Kurono, who is ambushed by Benimaru's doppelganger, leading us into Chapter 284, The Strongest versus the Craziest. We have a picture here of like the real Beni and Kurono right up in each other's faces. A meeting of two people who reach different peaks. Strongest, craziest, and between them, impossible. There's a weird similarity here, I'm sure it's entirely coincidental, to like the Two Faces vase optical illusion. It doesn't quite work thanks to their hair kind of being where the vase would be. But if you got rid of their hair, you could like see the vase in the middle and the two faces. I don't think that's going anywhere, but that's kind of what I noticed. Anyway, Chapter 284, The Strongest versus the Craziest. We have our Scan Later page. We have our Go Support the Original Release page. And then we're back where we left off with Kurono and Beni's doppelganger. A meeting between Kurono and Benimaru's doppelganger. A fight between the strongest and the craziest begins. And Kurono kind of looks over him. Great. If it isn't the destroyer of Asakusa's doppelganger. And Beni's doppelganger, who is now much more normal looking. You know, in the past he's had, instead of eyes, just the circle and the X. Now he just kind of looks like a regular Benimaru, but his eyes are a bit more shaded in. Either way, Kurono looks at him. Here I was, planning to skip out on work. Why'd you have to come here? And Beni kind of grins at him. You're strong, aren't you? Let's have a fight. That's very much kind of public perception of Beni, and very far from the real Beni. But Kurono comments, please give me a break. I only like fighting people who are way weaker than me. And Benimaru grins at him. I can't say I care about your preferences. And he runs up to Kurono just with that. Kurono barely like ducks out of the... Oh no, I thought he was going to just dodge out of the way. He like zooms away from Benimaru. He does not want to be here at all. But Benimaru is right back up with him, and at this distance he regains that kind of weird mannequin look with the O and the X instead of eyes. I don't know if it means anything at all. He's kind of swapping between the two faces based on perspective, but it's definitely something to note. Anyway, Beni goes on the attack. Ei Chop, Form 1, Kagetsu, Fire Moon. And that hits Kurono square on, like, the arms, kind of like deflects it from hitting his chest. But Kurono is still sent flying. We actually see that he hit these kind of, like, arm guards made of ash. So Kurono really got away with no real damage there. But Beni is right back on the attack with Form 5 Sokujitsu Sunset. And this time Kurono blocks it straight in like the X of his two little ash creations. And with that, creates an explosion of ash. Hit an eclipse. And we just see Kurono's eyes in the darkness. Beni grins at him. This stuff is pointless. And just clears the ash away without even trying. This is really the strongest. Like, he's earned the title of the strongest. And Beni looks at him. I can control all ignition abilities within a diameter of 23 shaku and 2 sun. A shaku is 30.3 centimeters, which is about a foot, I think. And 1 sun is 3.03 centimeters. I don't really know where these units of measurement come from. But also, that's not really what I recall Beni's abilities being. It's not really tied in with other people's ignition abilities. It's just having second and third gen simultaneously. But maybe the perception of Benimaru as just the absolute strongest man alive is making him incredibly overpowered, to the point where he can control other people's ignition abilities like that. Or maybe I'm just forgetting something about Beni. That's perfectly possible. Anyway, I can control all ignition abilities within a diameter of 23 Shaku and 2 Sun. And Kurono looks at him. That's probably a compliance violation. But we see Benimaru goes right back on the attack, and Kurono tries to guard, but they fade away. And Kurono notes, "You can cancel my swift weapons too." And Benimaru just grins, "Everything around me," and he strikes at Kurono right in the chest, sends him flying towards the ground. He, he crashes onto this rooftop. Sorry, the words are escaping me again. And though we see that Kurono's able to mostly save himself by creating a pillow of his soot, kind of like Gaara in the fight with Lee. And Kurono looks up. "I can't use my ignition abilities, but he can use his freely. And on top of that, he's the embodiment of what the people of Asakusa believe to be the strongest there is. Continuing this job will just put a stain on my career. I can't do it." He's going to try to retreat, which is very understandable, given who Kurono is. But Beni just yells down, "Is that the best you can do, Mr. Haijima's craziest?" And Kurono kind of coughs again, and then kind of mutters to himself, "I can't believe it was compared to a monster like that." And then he looks up. "I give up. I have no chance of winning this if we keep this up. You're content, please leave." He's not going to be content. And yeah, Benimaru's counters, "Doesn't work like that. I'm the king of destruction. I can't stop until I destroy everything." And Kurono goes to make another smoke screen. Guess I'll have to make a smoke screen and run away. But Beni has appeared right beside him, dissipating the smoke. "I'm not letting you escape." And just like that, Beni flashes down Kurono's back, and then just starts stabbing him with his fingertips all over the place, and then whacks him upside the head. Kurono might not make it out of this one. I don't know, all of a sudden I get this distinct feeling like Kurono is not important enough that I can say with certainty that there would be a big build-up to his death, like Arthur's. He might just die here. But yeah, he's alive for now, and Beni throws him into a water tank. And Kurono looks up. "This is not fair in the slightest." And I want to talk about some artistic license on this bottom panel. How we have the Beni in the background and then the Beni in the foreground as a zoom in. But no, I think the real Beni's arrived as his doppelganger readies an attack. "Yai Chop Form 4, Sekijitsu, Burning Sun. Die along with this whole city." But we see the real Benimaru just stands there behind him. Kurono stares, a little frustrated that Beni's just sitting there. "Hey, guy in the back, you're the real Benimaru, aren't you? Stop spectating and switch with me." And Benimaru kind of sighs. "I thought it'd be rude of me to get into other people's fights, but..." And he takes off his cloak and takes off one sleeve. "May I?" And Kurono just is all for it. "This is way above my pay grade. Being compared to you is nothing but a nuisance. Asking me to do this is power harassment." And the doppelganger turns back to Beni. "Hey, real deal." And Beni just looks at him. "Hey, yourself." And Kurono kind of, lets him in on what's going on. That guy is supposed to be the image of what the people of Asakusa believe to be the strongest, and the Empire's idea of the King of Destruction. I like that idea, actually. The note that he's not just the strongest. He's the strongest, and the Empire's idea of the King of Destruction. He's those two worldviews, Asakusa and the Empire, merging together, which is an interesting bit. Anyway, Kurono goes on. "Only you, his real counterpart, can defeat him. No, I don't even know if you have a chance. Can you win?" And Beni just tells him, "If it were anyone other than me, I'd say I could, but I'm going to have to try before I can say anything." And the doppelganger looks at him. Now there's a distinct difference between the two in their eyes. I'm curious if that's gonna hold up for the entire fight, or if we're just going to be alternating between 3 different doppelganger faces. Anyway, then let's fight, real deal. And Benimaru looks at him. Seems like it's all the rage these days to have a fight to decide the one who's real, isn't it? The man in charge of Asakusa has to be the strongest there is. Whoever wins is the real one. Which is a similar that's actually an interesting thing, though. That line there. Seems like it's all the rage these days to have a fight to decide the one who's real. Is that's happened twice in the past, 10 chapters. That was the focus of the Kurono fight and the assault fight. But Beni can't possibly know that. He wasn't there for any of that. So, is that a bit of a fourth wall break? Because Beni doesn't have any of those Adola-based powers that would let him see that. Maybe he just kind of knows because he's Beni, or he saw them while he was flying over? Though I doubt he saw Kurono while he was flying to join this fight. I don't know. It's an interesting bit, because it's very clearly a callback to the last 10 chapters. Even if we wouldn't really be able to, or even if Beni wouldn't really be able to know that. Anyway, whoever wins is the real one, and he kind of squares off. To be continued up to 285, fight to determine the strongest. So yeah, much more on board with this chapter than I was with the assault climax, and even more than I was with the mid chapter with Joker and Burns. It's just a fun fight. It's Kurono, absolutely playing defense and failing at playing defense, as Benimaru can just dissolve his attacks apparently, which is not really. I don't think that's what the real Beni can do. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think the real Beni could just dissolve attacks like that. But this one can, as he is the image of the strongest man of Asakusa and the Empire's King of Destruction, which is, again, a nice little note that he kind of has these two images. They're both incredibly powerful and incredibly destructive, but they are also kind of different, which is a nice little reminder. Either way, we just see Beni going on the attack again and again. Conroe falls. He's completely helpless. I do love this little gag of Beni just kind of watching the fight, because it's kind of rude to join in someone else's fight. That's just a good, funny bit. As Conroe gets really fucking mad. But with that, the real Beni is in the fight, and it's time for the big Benimaru fight. I will say, I commented way back in the fight with Hibachi that fight was kind of a letdown, in that, normally these fights have such a strong sense of, physicality to them, and that was largely just, Hibachi and Benimaru kind of flying and throwing fire at each other for, 5 chapters. I'm hoping this one is better than that. That it's, a bit of that tactility that makes Fire Force so good. But yeah, with that, it's a pretty simple fight chapter. There's not a whole lot to really dig into from a thematic or a lore kind of stance, but it's a lot of fun, and I really can't wait for Beni versus Beni. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. Do whatever makes you happy. And remember, your life is your own. Okay, bye.